Hey everyone, welcome to the New Populist. I'm Dave Brown. If you're new to this channel, please like and subscribe. Trigger warning, this video may trigger some of you, and this has to do, this video, with the passing of Colin Powell. Now, as you're all aware, Donald Trump released a statement that has the usual suspects in the mainstream establishment lighting themselves on fire and beating their chest and ripping out their hair because of his somewhat critical statement of Colin Powell. And my question is, why are we giving him this reverence? One of my biggest fears as an adult is being responsible for someone's death. I'll give you an example. When I was younger, I used to drive pretty fast, had a fast car, thought it was cool. As I get older, I see those signs in neighborhoods saying, drive like your kids live here. And I always thought, that's a fair point. What if my kid lived there? What if I accidentally ran over some kid because I was driving too fast in a neighborhood? That thought horrifies me, that I could possibly kill somebody by accident. And that would live with me for the rest of my life. And I think all of us adults who have a conscience go, wow, I have to be careful with what I do, because even if something happened by accident, it will hang with you. And so I wonder, looking at Colin Powell, how he lives with himself. He went in front of the United Nations and he gave a speech that he knew was BS. And he later essentially admitted that, the president wanted to do it, and what was I to do? Well, he had a choice. You resign. You say, sir, I can't do this. And if you want me to resign, I'll resign. That's what you do when you're in a situation that you don't want to be in. It's tough, but you have to do the right thing. We can look at other countries and their military commanders and say, they should have stood up and said, I'm not going to do that. How often have you heard people say that about the German officers in the Third Reich, that they should have said, I'm not going to do this, and resigned their commission and went to jail? We say that they had a responsibility to stand up and do that. Well, guess what? People in our government also have that same responsibility. But even more so, because if Colin Powell in 2003 stood up and said that, he wasn't going to jail. He was a 4-star general. He was the Secretary of State. He would have been a hero to a lot of people for standing up for what was right, which is not lying to get us into a war. So he didn't have all that much to lose. He wasn't going to go to jail. Yet anyway, he stood up, went to the UN, and gave that speech that started a war that killed hundreds of thousands of civilians in Iraq, U.S. service members, and of course cost us billions and billions of dollars. So my question is, how do you live with that? Well, Colin Powell gave an interview later to Barbara Walters, and he says this, and notice the minimizing here. I'm the one who presented it on behalf of the United States to the world, Mr. Powell said, acknowledging that his presentation will always be a part of my record. He also said, it would forever be a blot. Now, would you characterize what you did as being a blot or a part of your record? Does that show true remorse for being part of something that kills hundreds of thousands of people? I would want to go and hide, never be seen again if I was that person. I would be so distraught for having been part of that action. But he describes it as being a blot and just part of my record. What does that say about that person? Now, we're all trained to look at our leaders in the United States as being almost, not that we can't criticize them, but they're good people who do occasionally make a mistake. And maybe, the foreign policy guys, we all got together and we made a mistake. Have you seen anything from our Pentagon, from our CIA that shows that they're sorry for anything we did in the Middle East? They were trying to get us into Syria. They were against getting out of Afghanistan. They wanted to bomb Iran. These aren't mistakes. This is what we do. And these people who are part of it are doing it, and they really don't have any remorse or any sort of hindsight about their actions. So Colin Powell, in my opinion, was pretty shitty. And you're not supposed to say that, but I will. What he did wasn't a blot on his record. What he did was lie and help start a war that destabilized the entire region and killed hundreds of thousands of people. And you can't just say it's part of my record and walk off and enjoy your retirement. Well, that's what he did, because in this country, we don't seem to hold our leaders to account for what they do. And ironically, they're attacking Trump for being cold-hearted and narcissistic. But I actually thought it was Trump that showed a heart, that showed some, thoughtfulness in his actions. And this has to do with when Iran shot down one of our drones. Now, at that time, you had Gina Haspel and John Bolton and other members of the establishment who wanted him to strike Iran and blow something up. And we were close. We had planes in the air, and we were just 15 minutes away from a strike. But then Trump, and he talks about this later, and he's talking about the process of this decision he made, where he said, I turned to my general and said, hey, if we strike, how many people will we kill? And the general said, well, between 150 and 200 people. And Trump says, call it off. And it was called off, and there was a lot of very angry neocons stomping around because Trump called it off. And Trump said, they shot a drone down, and now I'm going to kill 200 people who had nothing to do with this decision, who are just the little guys, little ants there. I'm just going to kill them because of this drone. And so he called it off. And he upset so many people in D.C. for calling it off. And that was years ago. Did that lead to any sort of escalation with Iran? Are we at war with Iran right now? Is there a huge problem? No. And so oftentimes our foreign policy decisions that we make, they always, couch it as in, if we don't do this, well, we're going to be in grave danger from this country. So we got to do something to really show them that we're in charge and that we're hawks. Well, does that really actually seem to be the truth of the matter? Has anything we've done over the last 20 years made our country that much safer? Has it settled things down? Do people like us now? Or are we now just pulling out of Afghanistan in a complete disaster? Taliban's running that again. And what have we have to show for 20 years of war in the Middle East? So Donald Trump recognized that, and he didn't bomb Iran. And he wanted to get out of Afghanistan. He had a plan to withdraw from Afghanistan. And he was attacked for doing so. But now here, he called out somebody who was part of the club, part of the establishment, a made guy, and he wasn't so complimentary. And for doing that, they're attacking Donald Trump and saying, how dare he say a bad word about Colin Powell? And I say, he said that? Who cares? I'm not going to cry for Colin Powell. Sorry. Just because you're a general in the military, just because you're Secretary of State, just because you might be a pleasant man if I met you. And I said, oh, no, I'm not a bad guy. He was very pleasant. You can be all those things. But those things don't erase what you choose to do. And what he chose to do got a lot of people killed. And he described it as being a blot on his record. That's not somebody I'm going to cry for. That's not somebody I'm going to defend. That's somebody who I go, oof, I'm glad he's not part of our government anymore. And he's passed away. to his family, rest in peace, whatever. But you won't see me doing handstands and ripping out my hair because of what Trump said. And neither should you. And going forward, we need to hold our leaders to account for what they do. We have to stop letting them hide behind, well, it was part of a government decision. That's weak sauce, and every one of us has a decision every day whether or not to be part of something. Some of us right now are refusing to be vaccinated and losing our jobs. And I guarantee you, for people who are doing that, they have a lot more to lose than Colin Powell did in 2003. He was Secretary of State. He was a wealthy guy. He was going to be fine. But there's people out there right now who are losing their jobs for not getting vaccinated, who are struggling to pay their bills. It takes courage to do things that you believe in. And oftentimes, in the short term, it hurts a lot. But that's the difference between being a person of character and principle and not being a person of character and principle. And every day, we have a chance to show who we are. And oftentimes, our leaders show us who they are, and we ought to believe what they tell us, because look at the results around us. Not good. Well, that's it for now. Again, if you're new to this channel, please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.